Hello and welcome to Bloomberg Quint. You're watching the fine print. There are some things that money can buy. For everything else, there is the Specific Relief Act. This is not a credit card commercial, but I'm talking about the law that comes into play when a contract is breached and the aggrieved party says money is not going to be enough, the terms of the contract must be met. The law dates back to 1963, and this week the Lok Sabha approved some very important changes to it. To understand what those changes are and their impact, I'm joined by Anand Desai, who's the managing partner at DSK Legal and who was also chairing the committee that proposed these changes to the government. Mr. Desai, thank you for joining us on the fine print. Before we come to what these amendments are, can you explain as to what kind of contracts seek relief or recourse under the Specific Relief Act?
All contracts, any primarily commercial contracts, and the nature of contracts, if you actually look objectively at it, has changed significantly as trade and commerce have grown. So the complexity keeps on increasing. The remedies for non-performance also need to therefore keep changing. So that's the way it has
moved. Could you give me an
moved.
illustration that why would I not be okay with, let's say, just compensation, but I would want to seek recourse under the Special Relief Act?
Take a business. A business wants to set up a large factory or 2 factories or 3 factories, which involves a host of activities. You buy the land, you contract to construct, you buy the equipment, you install the equipment, you commission the plant, you get finance alongside for the plant, you get utilities for the plant. It's a whole host of things. Now, the objective of the business obviously is to run its business, not to get damages because one or the other contractor or counterparty of the contract has not performed. So it's important, we thought, in today's world, where complexity has grown so much, to ensure that the party who's contracting gets what he's contracting for and not just money at the end of a long and potentially arduous litigation.
Okay, so let's look at the first important change. The Act provides for 2 remedies. The party that has suffered a loss can ask for a monetary compensation or request the court to compel the defaulting party to meet the terms of the contract. The court could use its powers to compel the defaulting party if in case the monetary compensation was not the adequate relief. That discretion is now being taken away. What do you see as the impact of this?
So the principle in India has been that damages is the norm and performance is the exception. Right. And the principle was that most contracts have a monetary reason to enter into them, and therefore money should be an adequate relief. Now the reality today is the time it takes to get damages can be a very, very long time, number one. And like I said earlier, I don't enter into a contract only to get money. I may have other objectives, like I said, to get the job done. Whether it's a plant like I described earlier or any other activity, I want something, therefore I'm contracting for it. And if I don't get it, should I be getting it through a court enforcing the contract, or should I just be getting money in lieu of that? So what we felt was that unless you push the court towards giving performance, except in certain circumstances, which it still will not, and that's been kept, those provisions, a party should get what he bargains for, and the other party should be put to terms to deliver what he's agreed to deliver in terms of goods, services, etc.
Okay. And what do you see as its impact? If you're saying that to ascertain those damages took forever, who is to say that this is going to be a speedier remedy?
Well, when a party knows he has to perform, hopefully he will enter into a contract with more seriousness. What we've also provided for is substituted performance. So if a party does not perform, the party that suffers the breach has a right to give a 30-day notice. If it's still not performed, he can appoint somebody else. So he can get his job done, and the difference in price, for example, or the loss he suffered can be sought then from the party in default.
Okay, I was going to come to this new concept of substituted performance. The affected party will be able to arrange for a third party to meet the terms of the contract and do the job. What has prompted this change, and do you think that this concept of substituted performance is the answer to some of the breaches that you see day in and day out by parties?
So we already had a concept of mitigation of damages. So when a party was in breach, the other party had a duty under Indian law to mitigate the quantum he would claim. So if he could reduce the loss, for example, by buying from elsewhere the same goods that had been agreed to be supplied, that was a duty cast upon him. It could not be that he just waited till the end of the entire, suit and said, sorry, pay me the full quantum of damages. This has been, in a sense, refined to say that when you can get performance by someone else, and it may not be in all the cases, but if you can get performance from someone else, you have an option to do so without having to wait for this party to perform or have a risk that what you consider mitigation is not actually going to be agreed to by the other side or by the court. So once it's in the legislation, this again is something that parties know in advance could happen, which helps.
And you think that courts will entertain such requests of substituted performance?
I believe so, because there are different kinds of contracts. A simple supply contract, for example, say buying rice or wheat, there's a market available. You can go and buy it, which is what mitigation was considered to be anyway. But suppose building a plant for a chemical or putting up a power plant, there are other contractors in the market. It's not like it's only one party could deliver that to you. So if you have an ability to go to someone else and say, look, this party is not doing what you're supposed to do, so why can't I go to someone else? As an example, an interior decorator disappears one day. You're stuck with a half-made office. You can still complete it and claim damages. You don't have to wait with a half-made office till your suit or arbitration is over.
The interior decorator here has done a good job of it though. So let me come to the third important change, sir, which looks like on the face of it aimed at infrastructure projects. The power of courts to grant injunctive relief in case of infrastructure projects has been taken away, and they've defined it to mean projects, let's say in the transport, energy or commercial infrastructure sector. Why is this important?
All of these actually are considered to be in the public interest. So while the contract may be between a contractor and the government, or a contractor and a person providing that potentially providing that service, the impact of a delay, the impact of non-performance impacts people as a whole, or society as a whole, or that area as a whole. So take a port, or an airport, or a power plant, or a bridge. All of us as third parties are going to benefit from having it and lose out when it doesn't happen. A delay also can hurt both in terms of cost to government or to parties involved, including a toll road, for example. If a toll road goes way over cost, he's going to recover his money from somewhere. That's going to be you and me ultimately. That's going to be paying. So the public interest is, to us, paramount in terms of if the project is having some significance from a public perspective, it is not just a private contract between two parties with no other implications as such, then should it get delayed or should it be fast-tracked? And we do know that injunctive relief is something that is not uncommon.
Yeah, I was coming to that. What is the propensity of courts giving such reliefs so that we had to bring this special amendment in the Act itself?
There's been a history of injunctions, appeals, and therefore projects getting stuck for a long time. It's not unusual to hear about this or to even see it. If you couple this with substituted performance, the two also sort of go together. That if one party is unable to perform, but wants an injunction to stop anyone else from getting the contract, and therefore sit on it, again it affects the public. So if you read all these provisions together, the purpose was to ensure that the purpose of the contract, especially when it's for a public objective, is met.
Okay, but are there not going to be any cases at all where that injunctive relief is merited, and now that you've taken those powers away from the court, you're denying a genuine relief to a party?
Take 2 or 3 situations. One is an environmental problem. There's a third party now seeking the relief, not a contracting party. There could be another public purpose involved. We're not saying in those cases nothing can be done, because there may be overriding reasons, not having got approvals, etc. But between the two parties, should there be injunctive relief is the question. Under this particular statute, specific performance of a contract governed with an injunctive relief.
Okay, so in those cases, you don't think there should be any genuine reasons why the parties to a contract should be seeking injunctive relief? Okay. The final change I want to talk about is the provision that the Act once passed, will make for expert witnesses. We've not had a history of those here in India. Do you want to weigh in on how that will help?
Complexity is increasing in contracts. Complexity in quantifying damages is increasing. Internationally today, it is, I would say, abnormal to have a large international dispute, whether in arbitration or in a court, without experts coming in, independent experts coming in and giving evidence as to what should be the quantum of damages, what was the performance level actually implemented, what is the consequence of non-implementation. So as complexity increases, if you don't have experts, you're merely believing what either party is saying. Now, how do you decide who is right and who is wrong? For a judge to have that ability to go into complexities of quantification of damages, complexities of, chemical issues, physical engineering issues, all kinds of things, may not be easy. So the court is given a right now to appoint an expert. Parties have to cooperate with the expert. And the cost is to be borne by the parties ultimately, because that's going to assist the court in coming to the correct decision as to what the outcome of the case should be.
All right, okay, we'll see how that plays out. Put together, Mr. Desai, what do you think these changes would mean for, let's say, ease of doing business in India? Because I'm guessing that's the objective, right? To get the job done.
Very positive.
Okay. Will it bring more certainty into the way business is done?
I think so. Both normal contracts and the larger infrastructure contracts, both, and there's much more certainty now as to what the outcome will be in case of a breach, which is really what the Act is about and amendments are about. It's not a general contract act. It's specific relief act for specific performance of contracts and for damages in case of breach and for injunctions. That's the scope of the act.
Right. And you see, we'll see how that works out. That is one in courts, and also may give a fillip to the ease of doing business rankings of India. Mr. Desai, thank you for joining us on The Fine Print.